on this episode, I'm talking about the identity shift that we go through when we do a lot of personal development, and not just the identity shift, but the dilemma of getting awareness and aligning with how do I now spend my time and who do I spend my time with? Now, this is a conversation that comes up a lot. And recently I was talking with a very good friend of mine, a business bestie, and we often talk about life and business and, general thoughts about what's going on in life and, things that are happening. And the topic of who would you invite to a celebration came up, right? And this is really interesting because you might not have thought about this up until now, okay? And I want to talk about this from a perspective that you might not have thought about before, because it is quite common in the personal development industry, whether it's with my clients or with my students or with my colleagues. It's quite common for the conversation to come up about the fact that, I don't hang out with the same people that I used to hang out with before I got into personal development. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that, when you do the work on yourself, doesn't necessarily mean that you don't hang out with the same people because you've fallen out with them. That doesn't have to be the case. Often it's just that when you start doing that personal development, that deep personal development, and you get rid of old negative emotions and you shift limiting beliefs and you gain this self-awareness and how you think and how you behave and maybe even what you want for yourself changes. Maybe you're setting goals and taking action in a very different way. Maybe you've raised the bar for yourself and what's okay for you in your life. Maybe you're doing things now. Maybe you're doing work. Maybe you've moved into a business, and what's important to you has changed. Okay, what's important to you has changed. So what you value is different. And when it comes to what it is that you value, that your values, the things that are important to you, are those things that you will expend your resources on, which is you'll spend your time on, you'll spend your money on, you'll spend your focus and attention on. And when that changes, when you do personal development and then maybe you're coaching or you start a business, a lot of what you used to do before may become no longer relevant to you, right? It might be no longer important to you. The types of conversations that you have now may have changed. And when you go through these kinds of changes, you might find that the things that you used to do no longer interest you. Okay, now, for example, before I was doing personal development, I used to hang out with people who, drinking and partying was a big pastime. Now, don't get me wrong, when I was in that space, I had an amazing time doing those things, right? I loved it. I loved going out and partying and drinking with people and talking about TV shows and complaining about work and, just doing all of that stuff that fit into that environment. They were wonderful people that I spent time with, right? They were like my great friends. We had great times. And as I started doing a lot of personal development and shifting how I felt about myself and getting rid of old baggage from the past, I was no longer really that interested in doing a lot of drinking or doing a lot of partying or, watching TV or, gossiping or, just generally hanging out and doing stuff just to fill time. Like, I had a lot of other things that were important to me, where I wanted to focus my time and energy. I was studying, I was creating goals, I was, going off to learn modalities and how to become a trainer and a coach. And everything shifted around what I valued, what was important to me. And so there were people that I just wasn't spending time with anymore. And it wasn't because we fell out. We didn't fall out. Nothing bad happened. It was just, there was just a mismatch, right? Because when you do a lot of personal development with yourself, what will happen is that you start to change your frequency, right? You start to change your vibration, you start to change your energy. And so the things that you talk about and you think about and what you do, they change. And so when you're then, you spend time with the people that used to be a match for how you used to be, it'll feel like there's not the same match. It'll feel like there's not the same kind of connection. It'll feel like there's not the same kind of fun or excitement or enjoyment in those connections anymore. And it may be out of your consciousness, but it just shows up as like maybe, you decline more invites, or maybe you don't receive as many invites, or something that might start to change. And so, when we go through that stage, there's there can be a period where we have to get awareness of that, right? Where that starts happening and you don't know, but suddenly you realize, oh, I haven't been talking to that person, or I don't want to go to those events anymore. And that might feel weird, right? But that's a process that a lot of people go through. And it's talked about a lot. So, people often realize it's like, yeah, actually, since I've done all this work on myself, I don't hang out with the same people that I used to. It's not that, again, it might not be that doesn't mean you don't like them. It's just you don't have those same commonalities anymore. And so you find that you're doing things differently. And so this is very normal, right? When people go through this and they notice this as a day-to-day sort of shift that they've experienced. But then what can happen that is out of awareness is that you might start thinking about things that you don't experience so often, right? So, for example, maybe you've got a milestone birthday coming up, or maybe you're going to be getting engaged, or you're going to be getting married, or maybe you're, moving into a new home. Think about having a housewarming, right? So there might be some kind of celebration, birth of a child, or some other kind of celebration that's happening, and then you think, who am I going to invite? Right? Who am I going to invite to these things? Because it might suddenly feel like you've only got a couple of friends. There might just be that, like, now there used to be a whole group of people that used to go out with all the time. And now maybe there's just a handful of people that you talk to regularly on the phone, right? And you think, oh, what's going on now? What do I do? Do I suddenly become someone who's got no friends? What if I throw a party and then nobody comes? Like, what do I do? And so this is an adjustment in thinking that I'm going to share with you today that might just be the perspective shift that you need, but it's one that is very, very powerful. Now, I remember there's one particular client that I was working with, and she was telling me about, because in one of the private group coaching programs I have, or the Elevate Business and Mindset Coaching program that I have, it's a program where I work closely with people who are trained in NLP, and they generally have some kind of coaching or well-being practice. So they're a coach, they're a therapist or practitioner, and I work very closely with them in continuing to help them evolve their mindset, mastering their NLP skills, and helping them build out their business in a way that they're fully aligned and congruent, and how they generate leads and sales and build their income. And so in this group, there's a whole bunch of stuff that I do around, like I said, it's anything from working on their personal stuff to mentoring them as a coach to coaching them in their business. But there's a lot of life adjustment that happens, right? The people that come in to this group are generally, they know that they're having a big identity shift, because there's a big shift that happens when you go from being in a job, for example, to starting a business, and from saying you're starting a business to making six figures and beyond. There's a lot of big shifts that have to happen on an identity level. Okay, and so that happens at a lot of different levels, and this is where I work really deeply with people and helping them do that. And so so this one client was telling me about, she said, since starting my business, I feel like I don't have time to do the things that I used to do. And this can be a thing, right? So when people start a business, it can be all consuming. Like if you don't have the right systems and strategies and business thinking in your business, it can feel very like all consuming. So this is one of the things I help people with. And she said, since I've started my business, I feel like I don't have any time. And for example, I used to love going to the shops and just walking around the shops and browsing through the shops. And I haven't done that in ages. And look, I can relate to this because, I remember when my daughter was young and when I was working in a job and I was working part time, like a big part of my weekly routine was going to the shops, right? So I was always at the shops either buying, my daughter new clothes or food shopping or looking at things for the house or whatever. That was a big focus of mine. And that's how I filled a lot of my time. However, now, it's very, very rare that I just go wandering around the shops. I still get whatever I need, but it's very much I go, what do I need? What shop can I get it from? Bang, I'm in, get it and go, right? And I could say it's because I don't have time for that, but it's not really that I don't have time for that because I'm in control of my time. It's more that I don't make time for that because it's not important to me anymore. And so when I was speaking to my client around this is exactly what she gained awareness of. It wasn't a case of that she didn't have time to go to the shops. The real reason she didn't go there anymore is because she didn't value that. She had much more fulfilling things to do with her time than just aimlessly walking around the shops. It's not that she couldn't do it, it's just she was not interested in doing it anymore. The problem is that she didn't have awareness about this change in behavior. All she noticed was that she wasn't doing it anymore, and her mind told her that she had a memory of that's what she liked doing. It hadn't caught up with the reality that she has now of that it's no longer important to me, right? And so once she realized, like, oh, actually, I don't even want to be going to the shops, it was suddenly there's no problem. Right. So it was that shifting of that. It was realizing and getting that conscious awareness that there's been an identity shift. And I'm actually the one who's always in control of what I do and how I spend my time. It's just that that thing's no longer important to me. Great. Problem solved. I'm not missing out on anything. I've just actually upgraded my life, and that doesn't fit in my life anymore. Doesn't take priority anymore. So what can happen is we can be creating these problems in our mind, which aren't really problems. They are just a mix of our old thinking projecting onto our current reality without having the awareness of the identity shift that we've gone through. Right. So we realize that we do have a fulfilling life. We just haven't consciously thought about what that is now, what actually is fulfilling to us. It's like an unconscious behavior. And so this also applies when we think about things, for example, what do we do when we're going to have a important celebration, right? We start thinking about, well, who do I invite now? Like, who do I invite now that I don't hang out with all these people that I used to hang out with? And there's a couple of ways that you might want to think about this, because like I said, you might have a reference point still in your mind of past celebrations and experiences. And so when you think about who will I invite, they're the people that you think about that you would invite. But when you think about inviting those people, you think, well, but why would I invite them? Like, I don't ever see them anymore. It seems weird that I would ask them to come to a celebration. Does that mean that you no longer have any friends? Not necessarily. Not necessarily, because when your identity shifts, you might need to make a conscious decision to bring in new people into your life that you can form friendships with, right? That have interests and values that are aligned with your new identity. And that's something that I've definitely done throughout, the last 8 years, is there's been times where I've gone, wow, I don't hang out with any of those people anymore. Like, who do I hang out with? And then I've had gone, okay, I'm consciously going to choose to bring more people into my life. And this can be, it can be more challenging when you're maybe at a stage of life when you've been hanging out with a lot of the same people for like 10 years, 20 years, 30 years or more, and then you're not hanging out with those people, right? And so the whole concept of that you can bring new people in your life might not have occurred to you. But you can absolutely do that, right? You can absolutely do that. So when you decide and you create this internal representation for yourself of like, yeah, actually, I want to bring more people in my life who I can speak freely to about the stuff that's important to me now, right? And you start thinking about, well, who do I interact with now, right? Who do I spend time with now? And they may be people that you've met through the studies that you've done, the coaching groups that you've been in, the business networks that you've been involved in, all the other kinds of ways of where you've been connecting with people. And so it might be a way for you to start thinking about these relationships differently. So thinking about, okay, these people that I spend time with now, it might not be in the same context of how I used to spend time with people, but who are the people that are in my life now that celebrate me, who are cheering me on, that want to see me win? And maybe these people are, like I said, in a different context. Maybe they're your clients. Maybe they're people that you studied with. Maybe they're people that you've met through business networks. And so you just need to upgrade your thinking about where people fit in my life now, because they fit in differently than how I used to think about my friends. And so you can have a look around you and see with a new light, who have you brought into your life in different ways and that you would like to celebrate with. Okay, you can bring new people in. You know, the level of friendship that you have with people is not solely dependent on how long you've known them, right? It's not solely dependent on that. Like, I've got people in my life now who I've met in the last 5 years, even, who have become very, very close friends of mine. Even up to the last 8 years, like the whole journey I've been in business, there's people that I've met that in my previous life, at how I lived before, I would never have come across them, right? I would have never have interacted with them. I would have never have been in a position where we were doing the same things that we would have formed friendships with. Whereas now, these are people that a lot of it's through business, through business coaching groups I've been in, through trainings that I've been in, clients that I've continuously worked with over the last 8 years for some of them. These are people, because this is the thing, when you're in business and you've got your own independence and who you choose to work with and how you choose to work and those kinds of things, you start to find that you're in control of only working with those people who you want to work with, right? So you've got to start looking at and go, okay, if I've been working with these people for the last 5, 6, 7 years, maybe it's shorter, 2, 3 years, and I enjoy the time that I spend with them, and they're respectful, and they they support me, and they want to see me winning, and they're behind everything that I'm about and that I do. Well, maybe you might start to realize that these are the people who are now in your life, and that these are the people that maybe you want to pull in closer to you, and that maybe these are the people that you would choose to celebrate those milestones with you. So I really hope that this has given you a different way of thinking about how you interact with people, because I think this is a common thing as we get older, and we're not, like at school, we're forever meeting new people in school, and then maybe through your 20s and you're out and you're socializing a lot and you're always meeting new people. There's time, and after you've had children and you're married and you settle down and maybe different things have happened in life and whatever else, that you're not having all of the old ways of interacting with people and meeting people. So it's shifting that perspective of, okay, so who do I come across in my life? Who do I spend time with? And how is that? It's maybe a little bit different than what used to be reality for me, but doesn't mean that it's a lower quality of life. And in fact, In a lot of situations, it may turn out to be that it is a higher quality of life that you are experiencing. Maybe it's a case of quality over quantity as well. Maybe you just don't even need to have as many people around you as what you used to do. It could be all kinds of things. Okay, so think about this in every situation that you're in. There's a new way of gaining awareness about either how you've grown and what or who is important to you now, or what you'd like to focus on creating more of. So my question for you this week is to think about for a moment, if you would, what's changed for you since you've been growing as a person, since you've done a lot of personal development, since you've created some changes in your life? Are there people that you no longer spend time with for one reason or another? It doesn't have to be because there was a big problem. It could just be because you now live at a different frequency, right? And now there's a mismatch. You don't match in with how that used to be with those people. Do you need to consciously set an intention to bring new people into your life, or to form new relationships in your life? And make sure that you have that intention where you're going and what you're doing, that you're looking to connect with people. Okay, think about who's cheering you on, right? Who's cheering you on and wants to see you succeed. Perhaps there already are people in your life that you'd like to bring a little bit closer.